Joining us now to discuss, Republican Party Chairman Reince Priebus. Chairman Priebus, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, John.
So let me ask you, do you agree with that? Basically, everybody I spoke to up on Capitol Hill this week says they fully expect that Ryan will come on board and endorse Trump at some point. Do you agree he's going to do that?
I get the sense that it was a great meeting, and I get the sense that it was everything both parties wanted it to be. I don't speak for Paul Ryan, but
what do you expect?
I got the sense that things are moving in the right directions.
Yeah, are you going to be shocked?
Let me put it this way. I would be surprised if he doesn't get there, because he wants to get there, and the things that had taken place on Friday seemed to move the ball a long distance down the field. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
So was it right of Ryan to go to that meeting, come out of that meeting, and still refuse to endorse Trump?
No, because I think most people involved, would agree that, in a 45-minute meeting, to just suddenly have reservations and then come out after 45 minutes and say, okay, here's a big bear hug, let's move on. I think everyone gets that the process is better in going through the real details of what everyone brings to the table. What does Donald Trump believe? What does Paul believe? And then only after that process, even if it's a short process, then I think closure is most appropriate then. Let me just say this, John. Both parties left, I think, very pleased with how it ended. So I don't think anyone left surprised or chapped. I think it ended in the right way for everybody involved.
Okay, but let me ask you the big question. Who is the leader of the Republican Party right now? Who speaks for the party?
You know what? People ask that question all the time. I mean, I speak for the Republican National Committee. Paul speaks for House Republicans. Donald Trump speaks for the millions and millions of people out there that have broken records that were voting. I think a lot of people speak for our party because it's a huge party, and there's only 2 parties in this country. I mean, this isn't Italy. We don't have 12 parties where everyone can fit neatly into a box. And so that's why I always say, in order for us to be successful, we have to be the party of the open door, to recognize that, differences among each other, it doesn't mean that we ask people to leave. It means that we ask people in and that we keep growing. And so a lot of people speak for our party.
2 weeks ago, right before he dropped out, Ted Cruz called Donald Trump a pathological liar. He said he lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. Now, you heard the latest story this week, the one about Trump apparently posing as his own spokesperson, and then you also heard him come out and deny that was him on that tape. Let me just ask you more broadly, do you have any doubts about Donald Trump's truthfulness?
Well, look, it doesn't matter as far as what Ted Cruz said or what Lindsey Graham said or what Jeb said or Marco or the whole 17, folks that we had running.
Yeah, I'm asking about you.
But what does matter and what we're dealing with now.
Do you think
my interaction with Donald Trump, I have to judge people based on how I have dealt with individuals one-on-one. I've never had a situation where he's lied to me. I've never had a situation where he was not gracious and to me. Now, obviously, we had a fight over the delegate allocation system, but I didn't back off of that. I came out and defended the party, and he didn't have a problem with that. So I judge people one-on-one.
So you trust him?
I also believe that people are entitled to listen. Of course, yes, of course. But I also believe that people are entitled to forgiveness and redemption. And the question I think most people have in this regard is whether or not people are who they say they are. And Hillary Clinton, I mean, you can talk about this issue of 30 years ago with the Washington Post, but the real question is, and I think bigger questions are, that on Hillary Clinton's watch in regard to exchanging cash for favors in the Clinton Foundation. That's an issue. Whether someone impersonated someone to some dumb story in the Washington Post, now that's interesting.
Okay,
but what about
let me ask you
four dead American heroes
one.
in Benghazi? I mean, these are issues, guys.
Okay, well, let me ask you, your nominee, your presidential nominee from 4 years ago, is calling on Trump to release his taxes, saying, quote, "It is disqualifying for a modern-day presidential nominee to refuse to release tax returns to the voters. There is only one logical explanation for Mr. Trump's refusal to release his returns. There is a bombshell in them." So let me ask you, do you agree with Mitt Romney on this, or do you agree with Donald Trump, who said it is none of our business?
Well, look, first of all, I believe that the American people look at someone like Donald Trump and say, okay, here's a guy on the outside, here's a guy who never run for office, and I just have to tell you, after a year of dealing with this primary one-on-one, and you know it's been a lot, I don't think the traditional playbook applies, John. We've been down this road for a year, and it doesn't apply. He's rewritten the playbook.
So he doesn't have to return those taxes?
It's interesting to analyze Donald Trump based on the old. You know what? It's going to be up to the American people. I mean, they're going to have to decide whether that's a big issue or not. I think, though, that Donald Trump represents such a massive change to how things are done in Washington that people don't look at Donald Trump as to whether or not he releases his taxes or what this story was of 30 years ago. People look at Donald Trump and say, is this person going to cause an earthquake in Washington, D.C. and make something happen? That is it. That's how he is being judged by the American people. So all these things that we've been analyzing for a year and that Mitt Romney's obsessing over, it hasn't done a thing. And that, I think, people are missing about Donald Trump.
And finally, I'm sure you've seen the front page of the New York Times today, the story about Trump's relationship with women, saying, talking about unwelcome romantic advances, unending commentary on the female form, a shrewd alliance with ambitious women, and unsettling workplace conduct. Do you have any doubts in your mind about Trump's relationship with women, about the way he talks about women?
Look, I mean, these are things that he's going to have to answer for, but I also think they're things from many years ago, and I think that, you know, as Christians judging each other, I think is problematic. I think it's when people live in glass houses and throw stones is when people get in trouble. And so, you know, as Hillary Clinton, this is a classic Clinton operation, now suddenly these things are coming out. It's not necessarily that people make mistakes or have regrets or seek forgiveness. It's whether or not the person launching the charge is authentic in their own life and can actually be pure enough to make such a charge. That's what I think most people look at when they evaluate people's character. Again, I don't think Donald Trump is being judged based on his personal life. I think people are judging Donald Trump as to whether or not he's someone that's going to go to Washington and shake things up, and that's why he's doing so well.
All right, Chairman Priebus, thanks for joining us here on This Week.